Greetings and welcome. We are in Tuesday, the PM session, June the 11th. And our objective now this morning is to talk for a few seconds, or this afternoon, is to talk for a few seconds about the Omega record sheet. The first thing that you want to take care of is signing off on the work of June the 10th. That is to say, Monday. Let's outline what that is, so if you are a student who is not here, you at least have some sense of what it is that needs to get done. On the reading side, we worked with Old Man and the Sea, now up to page 83, which is where we will begin here in a moment.
What was the writing for yesterday?
I'm not there yet. I'm just working the reading. We also did a annotation over O Me, O Life. You can abbreviate to simply O Me, a Walt Whitman offering. We then did a writing, typed writing, of 3 reasons why we find the Old Man of Old Man and the Sea heroic or not. Finally, we worked with chapter 4 of Unstoppable. Now, you should check your Omega file. If you were absent yesterday, you will have, I believe, a copy of chapter 4's writing. We never do the writing until we've done the reading of the chapter. And, of course, everything provided online for those of you absent. Now, I need to say this again just to remind. When you submit to me makeup work, and I've got several of you who will be doing this, Ms. Kasdorf already starting to submit some makeup work from earlier sessions, and of course as well others of us. When you submit, it's hypercritical that you have some kind of date on the front, and it's hypercritical that Miss Laird has gone through your packet and checked off on everything before you give it to me through the great bed. Because once I see it, my assumption is Miss Laird has sat down with you. We've gone through the process of making up the work. There's no concern about making up the work. The only concern is making sure you measure a number of absences so that you do not exceed your 4. Just to give you now an overview for this hour's session, we will begin with our reading of Old Man and the Sea. We will then do a brief annotation, followed by our first of our writing assessments for state standards from the technology that you know of as My Access. We will be working with that technology then after the break. What I need now is all handhelds put away and turned off, including phones and the like. And we now ask that you open your copy of Old Man and the Sea to page 83. You want a blank sheet of paper out, and again, all handhelds are put away. They are not sitting on tabletops. They are actually put away, so that way you're not distracted. Or you can set them inside of your Omega file, so that you at least know that it's there, but you're not distracted by looking at it, okay? Again, just to remind, you want to make sure that you log in with a blank sheet of paper. Again, if you need black or red ink, I have here at the front of the room. Feel free to acquire. What color do you need, Mr. Black? Yes? Anyone else need a pen?
No, Mr.
The login information, today's date, always making sure that you're applying the information of today's date.
Is there any papers that
I can get you some. You need more paper?
No, I mean, like, is there any papers that we need to get?
Not now. No papers that you need now.
Okay.
We will be working simply with taking notes now of Old Man and the Sea. Again, just to remind, periodically at the end of basically each page, Ms. Laird will briefly pause our reading so that you can make some notes that are specific to the reading that you just completed. Again, we're trying to improve our reading skill sets. Ms. Laird.
Okay, page 83.
How far down?
He woke with the jerk of his right fist coming up against his face and the line burning out through his right hand. He had no feeling in his left hand, but he braked all he could with his right, and the line rushed out. Finally, his left hand found the line, and he leaned back against the line, and now it burned his back and his left hand was taking all the strain and cutting badly.
Ms.
He
Laird,
looked back
can
at the
we
cause
pause
of
for a
line and
moment and
repeated
just summarize
smoothly.
where we are, since we have some students who
We
are
are
not
in the
with us
middle of
yesterday?
82, sorry.
Yeah. Can we just briefly summarize so everyone knows kind of where we are in the text?
So the old man has gone out and he finally hooked a fish in about the afternoon of the first day. And this fish started pulling him out to sea. It's so big that it's pulling him, his boat, and everything. Pulls him all through the night, pulls him all through the next day. So he's in, at this point, day 2 of holding on to the line with his hands with this fish pulling him. And it's slowly coming up. It surfaced a few times, and one time when it surfaced, he saw that this fish was longer than his boat by a couple of feet. And it's definitely the biggest fish he's ever tried to catch before. He's starting to feel a kinship, a relationship with the fish, because they're both going through this struggle together. He actually kind of feels sorry that he's going to have to kill such a great old fish. Does that sound about right? Do I have anything else? Right, and his hands have been getting cut up. The line has sliced through his hands. One time when the fish came up, the line went up and sliced his face. So he's in a lot of pain. He finally got to where he could hold the line and go to sleep, and then the fish came up. So he's exhausted, he's in pain, and he's just hoping that this fish is about ready to come up so he can be done. Okay, so you said middle of 82?
Yeah.
Is that where it was? All right, in the middle of 82 is where we're at.
Just then the fish jumped, making a great bursting of the ocean and then a heavy fall. Then he jumped again, and the boat was going fast, although the line was still racing out, and the old man was raising the strain to a breaking point, and raising it to breaking point again and again. He had been pulled down tight onto the bow, and his face was in the cut slice of dolphin, and he could not move. This is what we waited for, he thought. So now let us take it. They can pay for the line, he thought. They can pay for it. He could not see the fish's jumps, but only heard the breaking of the ocean and the heavy splash as he fell. The speed of the line was cutting his hands badly. But he had always known this would happen, and he tried to keep the cutting across the callous parts, and not let the line slip into the pond or cut the fingers. If the boy was here, he would wet the coils of line, he thought. Yes, if the boy were here. If the boy were here. The line went out and out and out, but it was slowing now, and he was making the fish earn each inch of it. Now he'd get his head up from the wood and out of the slice of fish that his cheek had crushed. Then he was on his knees, and then he rose slowly to his feet. He was seating the line, but more slowly all the time. He worked back to where he could feel with his foot the coils of line that he could not see. There was plenty of line still, and now the fish had to pull the friction of all that new line through the water. Yes, he thought, and now he has jumped more than a dozen times and filled the sacks along his back with air, and he cannot go down deep to die where I cannot bring him up. He will start circling soon, and then I must work on him. I wonder what started him so suddenly. Could it have been hunger that made him desperate? Or was he frightened by something in the night? Maybe he suddenly felt fear. But he was such a strong, calm fish, and he seemed so fearless and so confident. It is strange. You better be fearless and confident yourself, old man, he said. You're holding him again, but you cannot get line. But soon he has to circle. The old man held him with his left hand and his shoulders now, and he stooped down and scooped up water in his right hand to get the crushed dolphin flesh off of his face. He was afraid that it might nauseate him, and he would vomit and lose his strength. When his face was cleaned, he washed his right hand in the water over the side, and then let it stay in the salt water while he watched the first light come before the sunrise. He's headed almost east, he thought. That means he is tired and going with the current. Soon he will have to circle. Then our true work begins. After he judged that his right hand had been in the water long enough, he took it out and looked at it. "It's not bad," he said, "and pain does not matter to a man." He took hold of the line carefully so that it did not fit into any of the fresh line cuts, and shifted his weight so that he could put his left hand into the sea on the other side of the skiff. "You did not do so badly for something worthless," he said to his left hand. "But there was a moment when I could not find you. Why was I not born with two good hands?" he thought. "Perhaps it was my fault in not training that one properly. But God knows he has had enough chances to learn. He did not do so badly in the night, though, and he has only cramped once. If he cramps again, let the line cut him off." When he thought that, he knew that he was not being clear-headed, and he thought he should choose some more of the dolphin. "But I can't," he told himself. "It is better to be light-headed than to lose your strength from nausea, and I know I cannot keep it if I eat it since my face was in it. I will keep it for an emergency until it goes bad. But it is too late to try for strength now through nourishment." "Oh, you're stupid," he told himself. "Eat the other flying fish." It was there, cleaned and ready, and he picked it up with his left hand and ate it, chewing bones carefully and eating all of it down to the tail. "It has more nourishment than almost any fish," he thought. "At least the kind of strength that I need. Now I have done what I can," he thought. Let him begin to circle, and let the fight come. The sun was rising for the third time since he had put to sea when the fish started to circle.
Okay, let's write a few lines down. So the fish has come up and he's been jumping around, which is something that it hasn't done in a couple of days. He's not sure why the fish has come up. It's either a fear of something in the water.
But he can't see it jump.
Right, because it's at night. This is the second night,
He can
so he
only
can't see
see
the
and
fish.
hear him.
He can hear the fish. One quote that I put down, this is something that he keeps telling himself over and over and over again, and pain does not matter to a man. So Santiago is fighting through the pain to get this great prize. And he keeps eating the raw fish for strength.
He thought it was strange how the fish was strong, calm, fearless, and confident.
Yeah, that's good. That's good. Okay.
Circle. He could not see by the slant of the line that the fish was circling. It was too early for that. He just felt a faint slackening in the pressure of the line, and he commenced to pull on it gently with his right hand. It tightened as always, but just when he reached the point where it would break, line began to come in. He slipped his shoulders and head from under the line and began to pull in line steadily and gently. He used both of his hands in a swinging motion and tried to do the pulling as much as he could with his body and his legs. His old legs and shoulders pivoted with the swinging of the pulling. "It's a very big circle," he said, "but he is circling." Then the line would not come in anymore, and he held it until he saw the drops jumping from it in the sun. Then it started out, and the old man knelt down and let it go grudgingly back into the dark water. "He's making the far part of his circle now," he said. "I must hold all I can," he thought. "The strain will shorten his circle each time. Perhaps in an hour I will see him. Now I must convince him, and then I must kill him." But the fish kept on circling slowly, and the old man was wet with sweat and tired deep into his bones 2 hours later. But the circles were much shorter now, and from the way the line slanted, he could tell the fish had risen steadily while he swam. For an hour, the old man had been seeing black spots before his eyes, and the sweat salted his eyes and salted the cut over his eye and on his forehead. He was not afraid of the black spots. They were normal of the tension that he was pulling on the line. Twice, though, he had felt faint and dizzy, and that had worried him. "I could not fail myself and die on a fish like this," he said, "now that I have him coming so beautifully. God help me endure." I'll say 100 Our Fathers and 100 Hail Marys, but I cannot say them now. Consider them said, he thought. I'll say them later. Just then he felt a sudden banging and jerking on the line he held with his two hands. It was sharp and hard feeling and heavy. He is hitting the wire leader with his spear, he thought. That was bound to come. He had to do that. It may make him jump, though, and I would rather he stayed circling now. The jumps were necessary for him to take air. But after that, each one can widen the opening in the hook wound, and he can throw the hook. Don't jump, fish, he said. Don't jump. The fish hit the wire several more times, and each time he shook his head, the old man gave up a little line. I must hold his pain where it is, he thought. Mine does not matter, I can control mine, but his pain could drive him mad. After a while, the fish stopped beating at the wire and started circling slowly again. The old man was gaining line steadily now, but he felt faint again. He lifted some seawater with his left hand and put it on his head. Then he put more on and rubbed the back of his neck. I have no cramps, he said. They'll be up soon and I can last. You have to last. Don't even speak of it. He kneeled against the bow and for a moment slipped the line over his back again. I'll rest now while he goes out in the circle, and then stand up and work on him when he comes in, he decided. It was a great temptation to rest in the bow and let the fish make one circle by himself without recovering any line. But when the strain showed the fish had turned to come toward the boat, the old man rose to his feet and started the pivoting and the weaving pulling that brought in all the line he gained. I'm tireder than I have ever been, he thought, and now the trade wind is rising. But that will be good to take him in with. I need that badly. I'll rest on the next turn as he goes out, he said. I feel much better. Then in 2 or 3 turns more, I will have him. His straw hat was far on the back of his head, and he sank down into the bow with the pull of the line as he felt the fish turn. You work now, fish, he thought. I'll take you at the turn. The sea had risen considerably, but it was a fair weather breeze and he had to have it to get home. I'll just steer south and west, he said. A man is never lost at sea, and it is a long island. It was on the 3rd turn that he saw the fish first. He saw him first as a dark shadow that took so long to pass under the boat that he could not believe its length. No, he said. He can't be that big. But he was that big. And at the end of this circle, he came to the surface only 30 yards away, and the man saw his tail out of the water. It was higher than a big scythe blade, and a very pale lavender above the dark blue water. It raked back, and as the fish swam just below the surface, the old man could see his huge bulk and the purple stripes that banded him. His dorsal fin was down, and his huge pectorals were spread wide. On this circle, the old man could see the fish's eye, and 2 gray sucking fish that swam around him. Sometimes they attached themselves to him. Sometimes they darted off. Sometimes they would swim easily in his shadow. They were each over 3 feet long, and when they swam fast, they lashed their whole bodies like eels. The old man was sweating now, but from something else besides the sun. On each calm, placid turn the fish made, he was gaining line, and he was sure that in 2 turns more he would have a chance to get a harpoon in. But I must get him close. Close. Close, he thought. I mustn't try for the head. I must get the heart. Be calm and strong, old man, he said.
Okay. Go ahead and write down a few lines. So he's trying to get the fish closer to his boat. It's circling him right now. He's trying to get it closer so that he can put a harpoon through it.
Who's they? There's only one person.
Sorry.
Remember, Mrs. Daly.
I know, I'm really bad at it.
Can I make a quick comment, Miss Laird? Jam writing is built on the idea. Think about this, Mr. Workman. I think this will make sense. Jam writing is built on the notion that all humans engage in what we call internal dialogue. In other words, we're always talking to ourselves. Think about you're out in the Badlands driving in the middle of the night, your car breaks down, Mr. Nash, we won't ask why you're there. And all of a sudden, you're alone. And all of a sudden, what's the first thing you do as your car breaks down in the middle of the night in the middle of the Badlands? The car just goes to shh. First thing you start doing, this is just great. When am I going
Will kill me.
to, you start talking. Of course, you open the hood, start talking. This is all. Dude, if I walked up behind you, right, and said, who are you talking to? You'd probably freak out because you thought you were alone. But then ultimately you would say, I'm talking to me. If you watch children really young play with their Lego sets, they will sit alone and all you got to do is see their lips moving. Who are they talking to? They're talking to themselves. Internal dialogue. We do it all the time. By the time you hit kindergarten, Mr. Workman, this talking that you sometimes did out loud to yourself, your kindergarten teacher started to squelch. Think of it. If you had 25 kids all talking to themselves in a room, you have a lot of buzz and hum going on. So you've got to try and teach kids. Then the internal dialogue that's spoken out loud goes internal. If you watch ball players, I know. Watch a baseball player step out of the batting box and the camera goes in on his face and his lips are moving. He is not talking to the pitcher or the catcher or even the third base coach who is giving him signs. He's talking to himself, right? This internal dialogue. That internal dialogue, jam writing, is the attempt to just take that straight to the page. Whatever's in the brain goes on to the page. Hemingway plays a game with us where he asks a really intriguing question. How does the old man think out loud to himself? I'm just going to write it. So the old man is talking to himself and you are kind of like you're there in the boat with him, which allows for you to experience what it's like to go through this process where yesterday, remember, what did we talk about? The guy who had to push the rock up the hill. Do you remember what his name, what was the word? Yeah, I'm saying this again because a couple of our guys weren't here. Do you remember, Mr. McAfee, what was the word, the name of the poor Greek chap? He pushes the rock up the hill. He almost gets it to the top. Then it rolls back down on top of him.
Jack and Jill.
No, you're close.
Roma.
No, this is a Greek story. This is a Greek story. Do you remember, Mr. McAfee, the name? It starts with an S or a C. Yes, depending. It's a Greek word, right? Sisyphus. The myth of Sisyphus. The poor chap will get almost to the top, and then the rock rolls down over him. And he's got pushed all the way back up, and then it rolls back over him again. He's in Hades, in hell, and that's his punishment. Sisyphus was a bad guy. So he had to do this thing where he pushes the rock. In many ways, Hemingway is showing us an old man in a Sisyphean effort. He's going to fail. There isn't any way. Ultimately, he's going to be able to bring that fish into harbor because he's too far out to sea, and there are a lot of sharks in that area of the water around Cuba. It's still the case, by the way, which is why it's so dangerous to try and get in a ship or a boat and try and sail from Cuba to Florida, to the Keys, because that water has some of the largest sharks in the world. A student of mine actually sat in this room, went to the Navy. He was a great swimmer. Mr. Workman, you'll like this story. He was a great swimmer. He became a diver for the Navy. He was so great at diving, they made him an instructor. He was teaching another Navy diver in the Gulf of Mexico, in the same area. And he said he was about 20 feet below the water, helping this guy, when all of a sudden he saw a shadow move. And, he had been trained. And It came and it swam in front of him, and it was a 20-foot and beyond great white. Went right in front of him.
20 feet like.
Yeah, 20 feet's like from here to the wall.
Oh, that's it?
Yeah, shark.
I thought so.
Shark. That, and the shark turned. Yeah. Mr. Denise points out 20 feet's more like here. Anyway, this fish, this shark, went past him and he looked right in its eye. He said it was total blackness, its eye. Total blackness. He said it was the eye of hate. And then he prepared to die because he knew there is absolutely no way. Of course, he had been trained, don't move. Right? So he did it. And the shark turned, came at him, and then at the last second turned and swam away. Why? He does not know. He got into the boat. He went through a year of education afterwards because he didn't want to get back in the water. And they taught him things like when you go into the ocean 2 miles away, the receptacles on the outside of a shark are already feeling that you entered the water. They know 2 miles away because they have these receptacles that run up and down their body. And they immediately turn and start swimming towards whatever movement it is that they know has hit the water. Unless something redirects them, they just keep going because they're killers. They go to try and find food. My point is this. Hemingway wants you to understand right away. There ain't no way this old man, is bringing this boat with this fish into harbor. It's going to be a lost cause. It is a Sisyphean effort. But the old man's got no one to rely on other than himself. So he talks to himself. The internal dialogue, right? There you go. All right, here we go. We'll go back now to some more work.
Thank you.
Don't have nightmares about great whites now.
There aren't any sharks in the place. I probably will not.
Oh,
What
great.
page were we on, Sheila? 90 or 91?
90. 90.
Okay. Yeah. Sorry, I was reading.
On the next circle, the fish's back was out, but he was a little too far from the boat. On the next circle, he was still too far away, but he was higher out of the water, and the old man was sure that by gaining some more line, he could have him alongside.
91.
He had rigged his harpoon long before, and its coil of light rope was in a round basket, and the end was made fast to the bit in the bow. The fish was coming in on his circle now, calm and beautiful looking, and only his great tail moving. The old man pulled on him all that he could to bring him closer. For just a moment the fish turned a little on his side. Then he straightened himself and began another circle. I moved him, the old man said. I moved him then. He felt faint again now, but he held on the great fish all the strain that he could. I moved him, he thought. Maybe this time I can get him over. Pull hands, he thought. Hold up legs. Last for me, head. Last for me. He never went. This time I'll pull him over. But when he put all of his effort on, starting it well out before the fish came alongside and pulling with all his strength, the fish pulled partway over and then righted himself and swam away. Fish, the old man said. Fish, you are going to have to die anyway. Do you have to kill me too? That way, nothing is accomplished, he thought. His mouth was too dry to speak, but he could not reach for the water now. I must get him alongside this time, he thought. I am not good from any more turns. Yes, you are, he told himself. You're good forever. On the next turn, he nearly had him. But again the fish righted himself and swam slowly away. You are killing me, fish, the old man thought. But you have a right to. Never have I seen a greater or more beautiful or a calmer or more noble thing than you, brother. Come on and kill me. I do not care who kills who. Now you're getting confused in the head, he thought. You must keep your head clear. Keep your head clear and know how to suffer like a man. Or a fish, he thought. Clear up, head, he said in a voice he could hardly hear. Clear up. Twice more it was the same on the turns. I do not know, the old man thought. He had been on the point of feeling himself go each time. I do not know, but I will try it once more. He tried it once more, and he felt himself going when he turned the fish. The fish righted himself and swam off again slowly with the great tail weaving in the air. I'll try it again, the old man promised, although his hands were mushy now and he could only see well in flashes. He tried it again, and it was the same. So he thought, and he felt himself going before he started. I will try it once again. He took all his pain and what was left of his strength and his long-gone pride, and he put it against the fish's agony, and the fish came over onto his side and swam gently on his side, his bill almost touching the planking of the skiff, and started to pass the boat, long, deep, wide, silver, and barred with purple, and interminable in the water. The old man dropped the line and put his foot on it, and lifted the harpoon as high as he could, and drove it down with all his strength and more strength he had just summoned, into the fish's side just behind the great chest fin that rose high in the air to the altitude of the man's chest. He felt the iron go in, and he leaned on it and drove it further, and then pushed all his weight after it. Then the fish came alive with his death in him, and rose high out of the water, showing all his great length and width and all his power and his beauty. He seemed to hang in the air above the old man in the skiff. Then he fell into the water with a crash that sent spray over the old man and over all of the skiff. The old man felt faint and sick, and he could not see well. But he cleared the harpoon line and let it run slowly through his raw hands, and when he could see, he saw the fish was on his back with his silver belly up. The shaft of the harpoon was projecting at an angle from the fish's shoulder, and the sea was discoloring with the red of the blood from his heart. First it was dark as a shoal in the blue water that was more than a mile deep. Then it spread like a cloud. The fish was silvery and still and floated with the waves. The old man looked carefully in the glimpse of vision that he had. Then he took 2 turns of the harpoon line around the bit in the bow and laid his head on his hands.
Okay, finally got it.
What? You got it.
You guys need to be ready. Make sure that you have that written down, that he has finally gotten fish. What would you do after 2 days? Would you pass out? And this guy's so exhausted that his limbs are numb. He's seeing black spots. He can only focus in flashes. I mean, he's losing it. But he finally got it. So we're at the top of page 95.
Keep my head clear, he said against the wood of the bow. I am a tired old man, but I have killed this fish, which is my brother, and now I must do the slave work. Now I must prepare the nooses and the rope to lash him alongside, he thought. Even if we were 2 and swamped her to load him and bailed her out, the skiff would never hold him. I must prepare everything, then bring him in and lash him well and step the mast and set sail for home. He started to pull the fish in to have him alongside so that he could pass a line through the gills and out his mouth and make his head fast alongside the bow. I want to see him, he thought, and to touch and to feel him. He is my fortune, he thought, but that is not why I wish to feel him. I think I felt his heart, he thought, when I pushed on the harpoon shaft the 2nd time. Bring him in now and make him fast and get the noose around his tail and another around his middle to bind him to the skiff. Get to work, old man, he said. He took a very small drink of water. There is very much slave work to be done now that the fight is over. He looked up at the sky and then out to his fish. He looked at the sun carefully. It is not much more than noon, he thought, and the trade wind is rising. The lines all mean nothing now. The boy and I will splice them when we are home. Come on, fish, he said. But the fish did not come. Instead, he lay there, wallowing now in the seas, and the old man pulled the skiff up onto him. When he was even with him and he had the fish's head against the bow, he could not believe his size. But he untied the harpoon rope from the bit, passed it through the fish's gills and out his jaws, made a turn around his sword, and then passed the rope through the other gill, made another turn around the bill, and knotted the double rope and made it fast to the bit in the bow. He cut the rope then and with his sterns noosed the tail. The fish had turned silver from his original purple and silver, and the stripes showed the same pale violet color as his tail. They were wider than a man's hand with his fingers spread, and the fish's eye looked as detached as the mirrors in a periscope or as a saint in a procession. It was the only way to kill him, the old man said. He was feeling better since the water, and he knew he would not go away, and his head was clear. He's over 1,500 pounds the way he is, he thought. Maybe much more. If he dresses out 2/3 of that at 30 cents a pound. I need a pencil for that, he said. My head is not that clear. But I think the great DiMaggio would be proud of me today. I had no bone spurs, but the hands in the back hurt truly. I wonder what a bone spur is, he thought. Maybe we have them without knowing it. He made the fish fast to the bow and stern into the middle thwart. It was so big it was like lashing a much bigger skiff alongside. He cut a piece of line and tied the fish's lower jaw against his bill so his mouth would not open and they could sail as cleanly as possible. Then he stepped the mast, and with the stick that was his gaff and with his boom rigged, the patched sail drew. The boat began to move, and half lying in the stern, he sailed southwest. He did not need a compass to tell him where southwest was. He only needed the feel of the trade wind and the drawing of the sail. I better put a small line out with a spoon on it and try to get something to eat and drink for the moisture. But he could not find a spoon, and his sardines were rotten. So he hooked a patch of yellow gulfweed with his gaff as they passed, and shook it so that the small shrimps that were in it fell onto the planking of the skiff. There were more than a dozen of them, and they jumped and kicked like sand fleas. The old man pinched their heads off with his thumb and forefinger and ate them, chewing up the shells and tails. They were very tiny, but he knew they were nourishing and they tasted good. The old man still had 2 drinks of water in the bottle, and he used half of one after he'd eaten the shrimps. The skiff was sailing well considering the handicaps, and he steered with the tiller under his arm. He could see the fish, and he had only to look at his hands and feel his back against the stern to know that this had truly happened and was not a dream. At one time, when he was feeling so badly toward the end, he had thought perhaps it was a dream. Then, when he had seen the fish come out of the water and hang motionless in the sky before he fell, he was sure that there was some great strangeness, and he could not believe it. Then he could not see well, although now he saw as well as ever. Now he knew there was the fish, and his hands and back were no dream. The hands cure quickly, he thought. I bled them clean, and the salt water will heal them. The dark water of the true Gulf is the greatest healer that there is. All I must do now is keep the head clear. The hands have done their work, and we sail well. With his mouth shut and his tail straight up and down, we sail like brothers. Then his head started to become a little unclear, and he thought, is he bringing me in, or am I bringing him in? If I were towing him behind, there would be no question. Nor if the fish were in the skiff, with all dignity gone, there would be no question either. But they were sailing together, lashed side by side, and the old man thought, let him bring me in if it pleases him. I am only better than him through trickery, and he meant me no harm.
Okay,
They sailed well.
so you should have it written down at least, that after he harpooned the fish, he had to tie it to his boat. Now this fish is bigger than his boat. He said it weighed about 1,500 pounds. Do you have any idea how they're done? I have a camper that's 1,500.
Isn't that
That's
ton and
huge.
a half?
Hmm?
Ton and a half.
That's a lot.
It was almost as much as a heart.
A lot. This is a huge. And then once he gets the fish going and he's, huh? It's a big giant fish.
Is it a shear or a beak?
There was like giant
He
fishes like
assumes,
that.
earlier on, he refers to it as a male because of the way it acts and how aggressive it is. And he assumes it's a male.
Hey guys, Hemingway was an amazing fisherman. He actually died by committing suicide when he was living in South Florida in the Keys. You can visit today where he lived. He loved to go deep sea fishing, and he loved to fish for marlin. So telling of this story is in large measure what Hemingway himself knew about how to land one of these really large fish. Even today with modern technology, it's really, really hard to land one of these fish. No kidding.
Why?
I actually heard recently of a story of a guy who landed a marlin, was fighting it to bring it into his boat. The marlin came out of the boat and impaled him through his chest with his sword on the front of his nose and killed him in it. No kidding. Fascinating. Hemingway? I'll let you Google it and read it for yourself. Not now, but later.
Okay.
How was that?
Another line that I really liked that I wrote down is Santiago says to himself, is he bringing me in or am I bringing him in? So he's starting to lose it.
And the old man soaked his hands in the salt water and tried to keep his head clear.
Bottom of
There
99.
were high cumulus clouds and enough cirrus above them so that the old man knew the breeze would last all night. The old man looked at the fish constantly to make sure it was true. It was an hour before the first shark hit him. The shark was not an accident. He had come up from deep down in the water as the dark cloud of blood had settled and dispersed in the mild deep sea. He had come up so fast and absolutely without caution that he broke the surface of the blue water and was in the sun. Then he fell back into the sea and picked up the scent and started swimming on the course the skiff and the fish had taken. Sometimes he lost the scent, but he would pick it up again or have just a trace of it. And he swam fast and hard on the course. He was a very big mako shark, built to swim as fast as the fastest fish in the sea. And everything about him was beautiful except his jaws. His back was as blue as a swordfish's, and his belly was silver, and his hide was smooth and handsome. He was built as a swordfish except for his huge jaws, which were tight shut now as he swam fast, just under the surface, with his high dorsal fin knifing through the water without wavering. Inside the closed double lip of his jaws, all of his 8 rows of teeth were slanted inwards. They were not the ordinary pyramid-shaped teeth of most sharks. They were shaped like a man's fingers when they are crisped like claws. They were nearly as long as the fingers of the old man, and they had razor-sharp cutting edges on both sides. This was a fish built to feed on all the fishes in the sea that were so fast and strong and well-armed that they had no other enemy. Now he speeded up as he smelled the fresher scent, and his blue dorsal fin cut the water. When the old man saw him coming, he knew that this was a shark that had no fear at all and would do exactly what he wished. He prepared the harpoon and made the rope fast while he watched the shark come on. The rope was short as it lacked what he had cut away to lash the fish. The old man's head was clear and good now, and he was full of resolution, but he had little hope. It was too good to last, he thought. He took one look at the great fish as he watched the shark close in. It might as well have been a dream, he thought.
He knows
I
already.
cannot keep him from hitting me, but maybe I can get him.
So at this point, you guys should be writing down, at the beginning of seeing that shark, he knows that he's not going to be able to bring the fish in. Like he said, here's a quote that I underlined, it was too good to last.
Okay.
What I wonder what at the bottom. Okay. Page 101, guys.
Then Tuso, he thought. Bad luck to your mother.
I need you guys
The
to
shark
take
closed
notes,
fast
put the
astern.
phones away.
We
And
are.
when he hit the fish,
Why are you on the phone?
the old man saw his mouth open and his strange eyes and the clicking chop of the teeth as he drove forward in the meat just above the tail. The shark's head was out of water and his back was coming out, and the old man could hear the noise of skin and flesh ripping on the big fish when he rammed the harpoon down onto the shark's head at a spot where the line between his eyes intersected with the line that ran straight back from his nose. There were no such lines. There was only the heavy, sharp blue head and the big eyes and the clicking,
Josh,
thrusting,
put it away,
all swallowing
please.
jaws. But that was the location of the brain, and the old man hit it. He hit it with his blood-mushed hands, driving a good harpoon with all his strength. He hit it without hope, but with resolution and complete malignancy. The shark swung over, and the old man saw his eye was not alive, and then he swung over once again, wrapping himself in 2 loops of the rope. The old man knew that he was dead, but the shark would not accept it. Then, on his back, with his tail lashing and his jaws clicking, the shark plowed over the water as a speedboat does. The water was white where his tail beat it, and 3/4 of his body was clear above the water when the rope came taut, shivered, and then snapped. The shark lay quietly for a while on the surface, and the old man watched him. Then he went down very slowly. He took about 40 pounds, the old man said aloud. Took my harpoon too, and all the rope, he thought. And now my fish bleeds, and there will be others. He did not like to look at the fish anymore since he had been mutilated. When the fish had been hit, it was as though he himself were hit. But I killed the shark that hit my fish, he thought. And he was the biggest enchuso that I have ever seen. And God knows that I have seen big ones. It was too good to last, he thought. I wish it had been a dream now, and that I had never